I'm going to call this February 7th, 2019 meeting of the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission to order. Start by taking a roll. Commissioner Daly, Friedrich.
Here.
Honig.
Here.
Horgan. Irwin.
Here.
Kostreva.
Here.
Leash.
Here.
Ortman.
Here.
Rise. We have a quorum. Next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have any modifications?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is adopted. Next item on our agenda is election of officers. So you'll recall, same process we've used for several years. Nominations for the office of chair and vice chair do not require a motion or second. Any member can nominate another member or themselves to serve as chair or vice chair. They're simply made by making a declaration that you nominate the person for chair or vice chair. It's done in an open vote. I will ask you to provide a hand vote just to keep things easy so I can make sure that I tabulate it correctly. We'll take the nominees in the order that they're nominated. First one that gets a majority of the vote is the chair or vice chair. And we'll start with the votes for chair first and then do voting for vice chair. So with all that said, if there's no questions about the process, I would look for nominations for chair.
I'll nominate Leslie Honig to be chair.
All right, we got a nomination for Commissioner Honig. Do we have any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Honig for chair say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations, Madam Chair. I will turn the gavel over to you.
Thank you. Next, we'll do the election for vice chair. Any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Horgan for vice chair.
Any other nominations? We'll close nominations. All those in favor of Susan Horgan being vice chair?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes and Susan Horgan is vice chair. And that is all of our officers.
Yep, and now it's an important lesson about attending the meeting. You never know what might happen if you're not here.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. First, the December 6th minutes.
Yeah, you have two sets of minutes in your packet tonight to approve. The first is for the regular meeting from December 6th, and the second is from the work session for December 6th.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. And next item is the December 6th work session minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals report.
Madam Chair, we did not meet.
Thank you, Commissioner Friedrich. And then next item is communications.
Madam Chair, we don't have any communications this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. And then next item on the agenda is public comment. This is the opportunity for members of the public to make public comment. If anyone would like to do so, now's your last opportunity for today. Seeing no one, I'm closing public comment. And next item on the agenda is site plan reviews. Site SBR 1902. Mr. Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, our first site plan tonight is SPR 1902 for 2945 Three Leaves Drive. This is the American Mitsuba Corporation stamping plant. The request tonight is site plan review for a 5,940 square foot addition to the existing plant. The property in question is zoned SDRC, which is the Research Center District. There are no special requirements associated with the property. The property is a future land use of industrial. The current use is as a stamping plant, which would be the use with the addition to the building as well. And the site has a little bit over 29 acres. This is an overview of the property in question. You'll note that the property has frontages on both Three Leaves Drive, Deerfield Road, and South Mission Road. It also has frontages on the Great Lakes Railroad to the north. There are a variety of land uses and zoning districts and future land uses surrounding this property. Properties immediately to the south and to the east are located in the Charter Township of Union, and so you'll note in your report that they have zoning and future land use designations provided by the township. Properties immediately to the north and to the west are primarily zoned SDU, the University District, and those properties are owned by Central Michigan University. There is one property that is just across the road for a brief portion of its frontage that is also zoned SDRC, the same as the subject property. There are a mixture of office, research, industrial, residential, and retail uses in this area, so there's quite a bit going on. This is a very large parcel, and so there's quite a bit of adjoining land with a variety of land uses and adjacency. This is a perspective looking at the front of the Mitsuba Stamping Plant building. This would be from the visitor parking lot that you enter off of Three Leaves Drive. So this is the corporate entrance, the entrance to the headquarters of the American Mitsuba Corporation. The addition in question is proposed for the opposite side of the building from that previous perspective. So this photograph is taken from behind, this would be the east side of the building, looking toward the southwest. So if you'll note on the left-hand side of the image, you'll see some pine trees and a power line. Those are roughly along the Deerfield Road frontage. To the left of the photographer in this picture, you would have the South Mission Road overpass over the railroad tracks. And to the right, you would have the remainder of the American Mitsuba plant and the properties that would also be located across the street from American Mitsuba on Three Leaves Drive. So the proposed addition is actually going to take up part of this area that currently has this driving loop. This is where truck travel is made for deliveries and shipments in and out of the stamping plant. As part of this addition, that driveway is going to be relocated further to the east, and a new driveway connection is going to be provided off of Deerfield Road to provide more direct access to that truck delivery area and to take that truck traffic off of Three Leaves Drive. This is an overview of that site plan. So again, you'll see this area right here is the area of the proposed 5,900 square foot addition. This would be that new and relocated drive aisle for the truck traffic, and this would be that new driveway entrance off of Deerfield Road right there. The site plan, as submitted, complies with all the required information under the zoning ordinance. The proposed addition conforms with all of the zoning ordinance criteria for the SDRC district. That would include setbacks. Building standards, we haven't received building plans yet. Those will be checked for conformance with the standards of SDRC. Primarily, those would relate to the height of the building. There are no issues with encroachments, with parking, with loading, unloading areas. We don't have information on lighting yet. We would expect to get that during the building permit process, and that would need to meet Mount Pleasant City Code, section 96.13. So with that, staff is recommending approval of SPR 1902, subject to meeting the standards of the city lighting code and complying with the requirements of public works and public safety. I'd welcome questions from the Planning Commission, and we do have a representative from Lapham and Associates here tonight to speak on behalf of American Mitsuba Corporation, should you have any questions for them.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Any questions for Mr. Kane?
I don't remember. What's SDRC stand for?
It's Research Center. So under the old zoning ordinance, it was RCD, Research Center District, and under the new code, it's SDRC.
Okay, so
That's
in the news as a result of the new zoning code?
This property would have been zoned RCD under the previous zoning code, and you'll recall in a few years ago, it's probably a safer answer, when the city rezoned the university to the new university district, and then subsequently there was the following year, I believe, we brought forward a rezoning for the research center district, and the properties that were under university ownership at that time switched to the university district, and that left only a handful of properties that were under private ownership in that RC district, and that's what this property and a few others remain in.
Okay, so this property is not owned by the university?
Correct, it's owned by American Mitsuba.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yep. So there's just, like I
Because the other
said,
properties there are leased, aren't they?
no, there's a Isabella Bank building and a McLaren, the Wellness Center.
And they own the property?
Yes, those are not owned by the university.
Okay.
But the majority, it's about 300 acres in that research park. The majority of that property is owned by the university.
Mr. Kane, Is Deerfield Road in the township or is it in the city?
I believe that the majority of it would be located in the township. It is a county road, so it's maintained by Isabella County Road Commission. I can't say for certain that there's not a single part of the right-of-way that falls within the city boundary, but the majority of it does not.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, will they need to get some type of permit to get a drive onto Deerfield, or?
Yes, yeah, just as if any plan that comes forward has to get, if there's right-of-way work associated, has to get permits through whichever entity, including the city. So if it was a city right-of-way, it would have to go through that process, county or MDOT.
This would be a county road that they have to get?
Correct, yeah, they would get their permit through the County Road Commission.
And they do that first or after this meeting?
Typically after, they have submitted that permit already. They're not required to wait to do that. Typically, they either submit it concurrently with this process or immediately after with the building permit process.
Okay, thanks.
I was going to ask, I saw something about needing to collaborate their water with CMU. Is that something that, I mean, does it work with our city water, or does it?
So there's two different water-related issues that involve collaboration on this property. One, the city has a well station that's located on this property, and so currently there's a unpaved access drive that enters off of Deerfield Road to that station, and that's for the city water department staff to be able to access that equipment. This new driveway will be in approximately the same place that driveway is at, so this will actually improve the ability of the water department to get access to their equipment. The second water-related issue, which is I think the one you're referring to specifically, is regarding stormwater management. The research park does have stormwater facilities that are in part provided for common benefit of the entire park. And so the university and the property owner have an agreement regarding their discharge into that facility. And so in order to, they will be meeting the city's stormwater ordinance via that conveyance of the stormwater into the university system.
Any other questions for Mr. Kane?
Thank you.
If the applicant would like to come up. At the podium.
So I know you had the questions about the stormwater runoff. We have met with CMU at the research portion there. The requirement, the main one they have, is that we can't add more than 30,000 square feet of impervious surface, building, parking, pavement, that's going to drain to that pond. The overall development is about 34,000 feet. A large portion of that, so it's going into the right-of-way, into existing road catch basins, into the county drain in the ditch. We've spoken with the Isabella County Drain Commissioner. He's aware of it, and he's looking at it. We'll be getting that approval after this meeting as well. There's also other catch basins on site that we're going to continue draining water to, that the new pavement's going to be draining into, so that added impervious surface isn't going to go in there. So I don't foresee any issues with not meeting that requirement. We'll give them the response to all their requirements back so we can get their formal approval of it, that it meets all of the requirements with the shared use of that pond as well. So, and then I know someone else also had a question about the building. The building plans aren't done, but it's going to match the existing building for the same height and finish. So that's not going to be any taller or of a different material to change the aesthetic. So.
Could you state your name, by the way?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am Alan Craighead with Lapham Associates.
Thank you. In any event, does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I need to sign this?
That would be great if you could. Thank you. I said that would be great if you could.
Thank you. And I will open this up for discussion.
I was just going to add, if you hadn't already seen in the paper, this was a pretty exciting project for the city and the community. The American Mitsubishi Corporation was able to secure a competitive contract that might have otherwise gone to another one of their plants in the United States. This expansion is going to bring some additional manufacturing jobs into the community. So if you haven't already, I believe there was already an article in the Morning Sun about the expansion, but it's an exciting thing for the community.
Move to approve SPR 1902, subject to the following conditions. 1, all site lighting shall conform to section 9613 of the Mount Pleasant City Code. Number 2, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of the Division of Public Works and Public Safety.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is new business, the 2019 meeting schedule.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We've got quite a few items on new business tonight, but I'll try to keep them quick. The first item tonight is consideration for setting your 2019 meeting schedule. I would just make 2 notes about the proposed meeting schedule that was in your packet. The first is that in keeping with the recent practice, your July meeting is proposed to be moved from the first Thursday of July to the last Thursday of June. This year in particular, that first Thursday of July is Independence Day. And so I would strongly encourage you to consider moving that meeting to the last Thursday in June, which would be June 27th. And then second, the January 2020 meeting, and boy, does that sound weird to say, but the January 2020 meeting would normally fall on January 2nd because of the number of holidays, days off that fall during that period, and I'm not even sure public schools will be reopened by that point. I'm recommending that we move that meeting back a week to January 9th, so the second Thursday of January instead of the first. Otherwise, it's the first Thursday, as is our normal practice.
Any discussion or motion?
Move to approve the meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is recommending a planning commission representative to the zoning board of appeals. So if anyone would like to nominate anybody?
I'll make a nomination, Commissioner Corey Friedrich, to be in that position.
Any other nominations? I'll close nominations. All those in favor of Corey Friedrich continuing to be the zoning board of appeals representative?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
I just want to note, Madam Chair, on that one, that'll be a recommendation that goes to the City Commission. The commission will actually make the formal appointment based on that recommendation. So just want to make sure everybody knew that.
Thank you.
Yep.
And next item on the agenda is the 2018 annual report and joint meeting with the City Commission.
Well, Madam Chair, your annual report draft is included in your packet. It is formatted largely the same manner as the last several annual reports, so you'll find a summary of development and application activity in the community, as well as other special projects that were worked on by the Planning Commission during the 2018 calendar year. On the back page of the report, you'll find the results of the Community Improvement Awards survey. So we do have 2 award winners, the residential award going to 313 East Gaylord Street, which was the first new single-family dwelling construction under the new zoning ordinance, and the second going to 1804 South Mission Street, the McDonald's renovation, that being the first commercial project that was approved under the new zoning ordinance. So we will be working once again with the students at Gratiot Isabella Technical Education Center and the Graphic Arts Program to produce the awards, and we'll look forward to presenting those hopefully at some point in the next couple months at a City Commission meeting, so I'll keep you posted on that. Tonight, I'm looking for any feedback you might have on the draft report, otherwise a adoption of that report and a motion to set a public hearing, or rather set a joint meeting with the City Commission for Monday, February 25th at 6 p.m. That would be 1 hour before their regularly scheduled meeting on February 25th.
Any discussion on the annual report or a motion?
I was gonna ask about something that was under the master plan implementation. There's a part on there about encouraging residential developments for internal recreational amenities. Is that something that's a pretty common recommendation now with,
Yeah, I mean, I believe that would have come out of that master plan process. And one of the things that the new code did include was for developments of a certain size, there is a requirement to provide some sort of a civic space. It could be a playground or an open space or some other civic element, but that did achieve that identified goal from the master plan. But that is common in other communities' ordinances if you're building particularly residential developments over a certain number of lots or dwellings to have a requirement for a certain amount of recreational space, whether it's a playground or something else.
Any other comments or questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve the 2018 annual report.
second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is enabling better places user.
Oh, did
We
set
still have to set
joint
the,
meeting.
set the joint meeting.
Oh, I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair. And I would ask if, I saw Commissioner Friedrich indicating he's not able to make that meeting. If anybody else is unable to make that meeting date and time, we do want to make sure that we have a quorum. Ideally, every planning commissioner at the joint meeting, but as many of you as possible. So does anybody else have a scheduling issue with that proposed meeting time?
I can make that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So,
I move to set a joint meeting with the City Commission for Monday, February 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the City Hall Commission chambers.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Now the next item is enabling better places, users' guide to zoning reform.
All right, Madam Chair, this is a reference document that was just circulated by Michigan Association of Planning, and I had an opportunity during one of the slower days over the holidays to look through that and found it very useful and very interesting in what it said about new approaches and more development and redevelopment friendly approaches to zoning. I think if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to take a look. It's not a terribly dense document. It's presented in a pretty light and easy to understand way, but there's some really interesting stuff in there. I would ask, we three-hole punched it, so I'd ask you consider including it in your zoning ordinance binder as a reference. I think we may, as we continue to look at housekeeping amendments over the years, I may reference that to you in my memos to provide some context for what we might be looking at or considering in the future. So that's no action there, just wanted to share that as a resource.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. And next item is housekeeping amendments to the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item is just simply a update following up on our December work session. I had the opportunity to meet with the chair and vice chair and discuss housekeeping amendments and the approach of bringing those forward to the Planning Commission. So I just wanted to provide you with an update on that. And we will be introducing, I will bring forward an ordinance next month for introduction, which I'll be doing some language cleanup where we had a misstated reference in a section of the zoning ordinance. It just references the wrong other section. So starting with that, greasing the skids, getting our text change muscles relaxed. And then I will primarily be watching to see how the medical marijuana facilities applications come in. We will likely be seeing those in either your April or May meetings. And because that's a new process for us, and those petitions may require a little bit of extra sensitivity, I will probably try to schedule your work session around those. So if we end up seeing those in April, we may have that in May. If we end up seeing those in May, we may have that work session in June. But that will be a time to come back and talk about parking lots, which was one of the other issues that the chair and vice chair identified as being a top priority to look at in 2019. Obviously, we'll also have the master plan process taking place in April, so we've got a busy couple months ahead of us already. So that's just an FYI.
And then next item is redevelopment-ready communities.
All right, Madam Chair, again, no action required here. I wanted to let everybody know that we are eligible for certification as a redevelopment-ready community. This is something that the city's been working on for almost the entire time I've been here, almost a little over 3 years. We will be officially receiving our certification at the March 11th City Commission meeting, and we'll be having an event that afternoon to sort of recognize and celebrate that certification. And so as more information is available about that event, I will be sure to share it with you. And I would encourage you to attend that as well as to attend the commission meeting on March 11th for the presentation. It's a really big deal. We're the very first city in Region 5. Governor Snyder had established prosperity regions in the state, and we are part of Region 5, which encompasses most of the Bay region. We're the first city in that region to get redevelopment-ready community certification. So, Midland, Saginaw, Bay City are the other larger cities in that region. So it's a big honor. We're the 31st city in the state to receive the certification, and it's the result of a lot of hard work on the parts of a lot of people, including the Planning Commission. So you guys have carried a lot of that weight to get that job done. So just wanted to make sure you knew that we were successful.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. And then next item on the agenda is staff report, administrative review report.
All right, so you have 2 items in your administrative review report this month. The first was a site plan for Tai Chi Tea at 1035 South Mission Street. This is the former Souders Auto Repair facility. You probably noticed they've already been doing some renovation work in the building. This site plan approval was for a 14 parking space parking lot that they're building behind that restaurant. And the second administrative approval was for the Isabel Community Soup Kitchen, 621 South Adams Street. This is they're looking to make 2 expansions to that building, one to the front and one to the rear. And that was also administratively approved. I'll go ahead and jump right to our next month's agenda. I'm anticipating 1 short-term rental application. I would not expect any medical marijuana SUPs to be coming forward until at least April. I will be bringing forward that ordinance amendment for introduction related to that Scrivener's error. I would tell you, I wanted to also give you a couple of, another update on medical marijuana. For those who hadn't already seen, we received many applications for medical marijuana licensing before the deadline of February 1st. At the present time, we have 56 license applications for provisioning. We have 2 growing applications for a Class A grower license, which is, you may recall, the 500 plant license, so the smallest of the licenses. And we had 7 processor license applications. We'll be having a lottery to select which of the provisioning center license holders will get to move forward in the process. That lottery will be next Wednesday, February 13th at 1 o'clock here in the chamber at City Hall. It's open to the public. And that will be when we learn who will move forward in that process. I also wanted to remind everyone that the MAP Transportation Bonanza is happening on February 21st in Lansing. If anyone's interested in attending, let me know. The city would cover your cost of registration and your travel expense to get to that. That's usually a pretty fun day down in Lansing. And then finally, just wanted to loop back to your earlier action item and make sure, please remember to add Monday the 25th at 6 o'clock to your calendars. We'll see you then before our next March meeting for that joint meeting with the City Commission. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions for me.
I do have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
The lottery for the provisioning centers, what happens if you're selecting 3? I don't know if you're going to do out of the hat or ping pong balls like they do with the lotto on TV or. The question is, say one of the 3 drops out later or they can't get a site plan approval, are alternates going to be drawn at the same time?
Great question. So we will be using a bingo cage to do the drawing. So it will be similar to a lottery drawing. The process will be that there will be each applicant will get a random number assigned to them as part of the lottery on the 13th. So we'll do one draw just assigning numbers, and then we'll do a second draw assigning their place in line, essentially. Every applicant will get a place in line. So if we still have 56 eligible applications on the 13th, we'll have everyone ranked 1 through 56. The first 3 will move through the process if they choose to. And if for some reason they're not able to fulfill one part of that process or they choose to back out, we would go to the 4th person on the list. If folks on that list, I'm not expecting that someone drawn 50th will necessarily want to remain on a waiting list, but they can. If they don't want to, they can request a refund of their license fee and come off that list. But I would expect we'll have at least the first handful of backup applicants remain on that list until the facilities are actually open. Once the 3 facilities open in the city of Mount Pleasant, that list ceases to exist, and anybody who remains on that list would get their $5,000 licensing fee back. But that may not be for another 12 to 18 months before those facilities are all open.
Okay, well, okay, 'cause as I understood the process, they pay $200 to apply?
They paid $5,200 to apply per application, so there was a $200 non-refundable application fee.
Right, but they also have to pony up $5,000 as well?
$5,000 is the licensing fee. So every year that the facility is open, they're going to have to pay a $5,000 licensing fee to the city. So essentially, they prepaid that for their first year of operations, and that is refundable.
If they don't win and wish to remove themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if they don't ultimately become a license holder. Anybody who doesn't become a license holder will get that $5,000 back.
Okay, all right. So you were saying earlier eligible applicants are, is it possible that some of the people who applied aren't going to be allowed to participate in the drawing?
We have some of our applicants paid by check, and until we can be sure that all of the fees were paid in whole, I can't
Yeah,
guarantee that the number's not going to change. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, okay.
Are there really 57 independent entities? Or are many of these entities related or under the control of the very same people? Can you tell?
Yeah, we had a mix of single entity, single property applicants and single entity, multiple property applicants. I believe there were 21 distinct entities that filed applications with the city for provisioning for those licenses, for those 56 licenses. So there are entities that filed for 2 or 4 or 6 different property locations. Ultimately, if they're drawn for one of the multiple properties that they've entered, that is the property that they have to operate on. They're not going to be able to do any sort of exchange. So we were very clear, made sure applicants understood that they were, that was a risk they were taking if they were entering properties that they did not have a legitimate desire to operate on, that they would ultimately not be able to operate elsewhere.
The list is on the city website if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, if you go to the planning and community development page, one of our sub-pages is the medical marijuana facilities, and there is a link to that PDF, and we're keeping that updated day to day. We are still accepting applications for the uncapped licenses, so secure transporters, safety compliance facilities, processors, as well as growers until we reach our caps. So we may still see additional license applications come in over the next several years until the cap is reached, or if it's uncapped, we could keep receiving those forever.
Again, you may have mentioned that $5,000 fee. Does any of that go to the city of Mount Pleasant, or is it all state of Michigan?
No, that fee is a licensing fee with the city. So the state has its own separate licensing fees. The $200 application fee stays with the city, and the $5,000 licensing fee for those that license ultimately also would stay with the facility, and we would see that $5,000 licensing facility again each year as they renew their license.
Any other questions for Mr. Kane? Then if there's a motion to adjourn,
Move to adjourn?
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.